What's going on, guys? I'm Zach,
I'm Levi.
and welcome to episode 13 of Blitz and Gates.
All right, let's jump into it.
So, starting off, I think we just kind of want to take a look at the landscape of the NBA right now, and we're heading into playoff season. March Madness is wrapping up, so it's about that time to start picking who we think is going to win it all. So, who do you have coming out of? I guess we can start with the East.
With the East, man, I feel like it's kind of like how the AFC has been the last few years. Like, you've got your juggernauts, and then you've got everybody else just in the mix. I hate to say it, I feel like the Celtics are going to be in those conversations for a long, long time. It's really hard for me to picture much else. I mean, it's the closest thing to a super team we have right now. It's just really well-built team basketball.
Do you feel like the Cavs pose any threat to them? I mean, they've been insane this regular season, like historically great, but last year they didn't stand a chance in the playoffs. They got pushed around, and this is the same core guys. So how do you think they fare against Boston?
Yeah, that's really all I can say about Cleveland is that they were there last year. They had all the same regular season accolades, and it all fizzled out come playoff time. So other than another year of experience, if you can't really say that there's been any notable changes, I don't really anticipate it going any differently. I mean, we're talking about the world champion Boston Celtics, and people like to deny or discredit championships for any team that they don't care for. You really can't say anything about Boston, though. I mean, it's a really well-built team. And Cleveland's well-built as well, but I don't really see anybody taking it from Boston this year, at least out of the East.
100%. And, prior to, Dame Lillard going out last week for the remainder of the year, I was really leaning towards Milwaukee because I don't ever want to be on the side of betting against Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since his finals run in, I believe it was 21, he was regarded as either the first or second best player in the league. And all year, they had their ups and downs throughout the regular season, but they've been my pick all year to make it out of the East just because Giannis is that guy. But now with Dame going out and, they traded Middleton at the deadline, I don't think Giannis by himself can get him through Boston, Cleveland, New York, any of those teams. So I think I'm going to have to agree with you and take Boston here. The idea of unselfish team basketball has really grown on me the more the season's gone on, and 6-7 guys on Boston can score 25-30 points any given night. So I think it's hard not to pick them to repeat out of the East.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we look at guys like Jason Tatum, right? And people hate Jason Tatum. Man. It's hilarious. Like, I love participating in that online on Instagram, NBA, Twitter, whatever. But at the same time, it's what you really want as a GM of any kind of franchise. You want somebody who could score, who could step up to the plate at any given moment, but is not going to require that to play into your culture and your team. They're building something big here. There's a lot of legacy in Boston. They want to continue that with this stretch. So I just think they have a great group of guys there.
It's very well said. So now looking at the West, how do you think that plays out? Because there's a lot more teams to go through out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this is where I say, two schools of thought of rest versus rust. Like, I think any team coming out of the West is going to be more geared up for the playoffs if they make their way, to a finals appearance, just because they've had a tougher path to get there. But at the same time, that means they've been through a lot more.
Sure.
A lot more, no rest, right? And obviously this Thunder team is really dynamic, really electric, but it's also very young. Mm-hmm. Not a ton of playoff experience there. I love the Lakers, but they can't stay healthy for more than 3 games in a row. So it's hard not to opt for the Thunder. They're the overwhelming 1 seed in the NBA as a whole. I know you like Houston, having Houston in the mix there, but to me, I mean, it's really going to be like the team dynamic with the Thunder, where it's going to be Joker. Like, absolutely.
Really? Yeah. Interesting. So you're taking Denver to come out of the West?
It's like when you have a team like LA or Denver that relies on a small unit of guys, they've got to remain healthy and they've got to remain conditioned. And like, you look at the Mavs last year in the finals, and the moment Luka can't keep up on defense, it's over.
Right.
Like, it's absolute wraps.
I will say one of the biggest, honestly, like X factors of the entire playoffs, not just the West, is going to be Jamal Murray, because Joker's going to do his thing no matter what defenses send at him. He's going to be the MVP caliber guy, best player on the court no matter what. Jamal Murray seems to start slow every year or be coming off injury. He doesn't seem to step it up until Christmas time. So it's really going to depend on if we get like a prime postseason Jamal Murray that he usually is. If he's giving you, 30 to 40 points a night when he's really on, like he was in the bubble, to see if Denver can make it out of the West. I will say about the Thunder though, people tend to knock how young they are as like their main criticism, despite all their regular season wins. I honestly think that Shea's play style is their biggest issue, and that's not something that is as easily overcome as a youth issue, because as a Rockets fan, I've seen so many playoff runs of James Harden, doing the whole foul baiting thing, and we've seen Embiid have his playoff struggles. He's never made it out of the second round. Doing the same thing, drive to the paint and just throw the ball up looking for contact. And, in the regular season, the refs tend to give you those calls, but playoff time, and honestly any sport, the refs tend to swallow the whistle. You're not going to get the same looks. You're not going to get nearly as many free throw attempts. And that's a huge aspect of Shea's game. I mean, oftentimes he'll drop 40 or 50 points and it's like, 70% of that was from the free throw line. And it's like, how impressive really is that performance if most of it's coming from free throws? So I'm really interested to see. I know he performed well last postseason, and it just wasn't enough. But I'm definitely interested to see if him taking this MVP ascension is going to remain come playoff time, and if the refs help him out. But Thunder definitely not a bad pick to make it out of the West. I agree with you there. I'm honestly surprised you didn't go with the Lakers because, Luka and Bron, it's going to be hard to pick against those guys. But as I said, I'm a Rockets fan, so I made a stitch earlier in the week talking about how I think the Rockets are the most underrated team in basketball, and I think that's definitely the case. I think that they have as good of a chance as anybody out west. Ime Udoka should be the coach of the year. Jalen Green has taken an ascension as far as his playmaking goes. Ever since he got to the league, all he does is just shoot a ton of shots inefficiently, and 23, 25 points a game while shooting 38% from the field isn't impressive, Jalen. But this year he's really taken a step up, especially recently with Fred VanVleet being out. He's really embraced the playmaking role and has started to average closer to 7 or 8 assists rather than 3 or 4 that he was, the first couple of years of his career. So, I don't even need to mention Şengün. He's a fantastic player as well. He's like a baby Jokic. I just think they have a lot of good components. I know that they're a super fast-paced team, which it really depends on how the playoffs look. I know the playoffs tend to slow the game down a little bit, but I think they have plenty of elements. People say that the Thunder are too young, or people say that the Rockets are too young, but so are the Thunder. They may not have the bona fide superstar that the Thunder have, but the Celtics are doing it by committee, so why can't Houston?
Yeah, that's absolutely a fair point. And, to speak to the rest of the West, it's going to be really difficult if you don't have that team unit, especially if you do make your way to the finals and you play a team like Boston that has matchups at every position, all over the floor. But that's where I say that, for LA and for Denver, LA's just been so spotty. And, we anticipated it to an extent that LeBron and Luka wouldn't be a perfect team fit, that it's more about handing over the reins than making a great title shot this year. I think they did surprise, and a huge part of that has also been Austin Reeves just being the most consistent, third option in the league.
100%.
But unless you have at least 2 of those guys showing up on the same night, do they have a chance against Denver? I really doubt it. Jokic is just so consistent. Do they have a shot against OKC? Probably not, just because OKC can match up everywhere else on the floor, better team defense, everything. So I think coming into the playoffs, it's absolutely going to be those big 3 of Boston for sure out of the East, and then out of the West, you can't deny OKC, and Houston's right there in the mix. I would agree with that.
Totally fair. One of the more underrated teams out of the West that I've seen get some buzz recently is the Clippers, actually. Obviously they've got Harden over there. Norman Powell's a great scorer, but the big story from them is Kawhi Leonard's played 31 of their last 38 games or something like that, which is just unheard of because he's never on the court, he's never healthy. But he's been looking very good. The Clippers are I think in that like 6 to 8 range as far as seeding goes right now. Do you think with a healthy Kawhi and current James Harden, do you think that they could maybe go on a run here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think it's hard to maintain that same unit night to night, when you're playing multiple 7-game series. So I really doubt that it will be sustained, but I think, as long as you have those guys on the court, then they absolutely have the makings of a great run.
100%. Do you think current Kawhi Leonard is still is he still good enough to carry a team to a finals run? Because we saw him do it in Toronto. Do you think that this is still the same Kawhi, or do you think he's regressed?
I think he's more than capable. I would say he's in that conversation of guys, I see you getting into arguments on TikTok. Houston doesn't have a guy like Kawhi Leonard right now.
That's fair.
I'd say he's definitely in that caliber of, he's maybe not going to carry you. He's not a one-man show, but he could absolutely help you out in a tough spot.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it would definitely be interesting to see how this shakes out. So, remind me again. So you have Boston and OKC or Denver?
Yeah, we'll need OKC.
Okay. And I've got Boston and Houston coming out the West. So, it'll be interesting to see.
All right.